subscribers, thank you so much for joining me today. I am Jeremy, this is the Financial Education Channel, and today we're doing stock market news weekly recap number 11 ever in history, recapping the March 31st, 2017 week, guys. We're going to look at how the markets did. We're going to look at a few of the biggest stock gainers this week and losers this week that caught my eye. We're going to look at some of the biggest stock market news stories, and we're going to look at what we have to look for in the next week, guys. So let's just go ahead and get right into this. So first off, Dow Jones back to positive, baby, up 0.3% this week. After a couple weeks it was down in a row. We had the NASDAQ, which had a very strong week, up over 1.4%. That's extremely strong on a weekly basis. The S&P 500 up 0.8%. So overall, markets are back green. You know, a couple weeks in a row we're kind of red, and it was like, are we going to have a correction? Which I'm for a correction. If we have a correction in the next couple months, I don't mind it at all. We, in my opinion, kind of need a 5-10% correction, and the stock market can get more fairly valued more to the lower side, rather than right now we're a little more to the higher side. So I don't mind it if we have a correction, and if it does come. If not, maybe we just keep going higher. Who knows, guys? Either way, it works out for me. I'm not looking at it as a negative either way. So let's look at a few of these stocks that caught my eye that went up a ton this week. So RH, this is a company named Restoration Hardware that I've actually featured on the 3 stocks I'm buying now video. I think I featured them maybe 5 or 6 months ago. This stock had a ridiculously great week. Unfortunately, I'm not invested anymore at this point, but the week it had was amazing, up over 25%. For those of you guys who do not know what RH is, it's basically a furniture store that sells furniture to rich people, and if you're not super rich and you're buying furniture there, then you must be crazy in the head. And Cabela's one of the best stocks I ever owned. This was a huge investment of mine for the longest time. They had a phenomenal week this week, up over 14.5%. I sold out of Cabela's like 2 years ago, so I'm no longer invested in it and whatnot, but still, they had a ridiculously great week. Then on the downside, we had a couple of stocks that had really negative, there weren't a lot of stocks that really went down massively. One of them that had a pretty bad week was Seabridge Gold. For some of you gold investors, gold just had a tough week in general. I saw many gold stocks went down 5+% this week. They went down 8.7%. And last, Rite Aid went down over 7% this week. Rite Aid, they're basically have been like a takeover target by Walgreens for the longest time. It's been like an 18-month process, like a ridiculous amount of time. Now Walgreens has said, we want to cap as much time. You guys, they're putting the pressure on the government now. Either you guys got to approve this really fast, or we're just going to not do it anymore, because it's been an overhang on Walgreens for like literally, I think it's been 18 months since they started the whole takeover and whatnot. So it might not end up getting approved, and if it doesn't get approved, then it looks like Walgreens is just like, okay, if it doesn't get approved, it doesn't get approved at this point, 18 months in, guys. So that affects Rite Aid stock very negatively, unfortunately, though. So number one stock market news story this week is the price of oil rebounded at the end of the week on news that basically a growing number of OPEC countries are supporting an extension of their cuts for another 6 months. Kuwait is lending its weight in the cause. So basically, Iraq, a lot of these countries in the Middle East that are in the OPEC, they have basically said, we're going to hold production at what it is currently. So that's a good thing for the stock market, not the stock market, it's a good thing for oil prices, because now oil prices cannot just drop precipitously. The problem that OPEC has, and the problem that oil prices have, and I know they recovered to $50, but the problem that oil prices have going forward and trying to get to an $80 or $90 or $100 a barrel, it's kind of unrealistic. The problem is U.S. oil production. Every time the price starts to go up, what happens to oil production in the U.S.? We start producing more and more oil here, because the way the U.S. looks at it, if you want to start an oil production company, you need a lot of money behind you, or you need to be able to get a loan, right? As soon as oil starts to get around $60 a barrel, everybody who has the expertise on oil exploration and can have either the financing to get it done or whatnot, and can buy the equipment, they start doing it, because then it just becomes very, very profitable. It becomes very, very profitable, and they try to get in the oil services industry however they can. So that's kind of the situation you have in the U.S. Whereas, in the OPEC, right? Everything's controlled by those countries. So if they say we're only going to produce 200,000 barrels this month or last month or whatever, that's all that is produced in those countries, guys. So it's just kind of it's a crappy situation for OPEC though in the Middle East in the end, because either, okay, they can produce a ton and the prices can drop a ton, right? Or they can lose market share and the prices might go up a little bit. So it's either way they're screwed. The bottom line is the U.S. is in such a position of power in this whole situation here. So that's number one stock market news story. Number two stock market news story that caught my eyes this week was actually BlackBerry had earnings come out. This has been a turnaround company that, you know, a lot of retail investors are involved with and whatnot. The company's adjusted revenues from software and services rose 12%. Now their overall revenue fell a lot. I think it was somewhere around 38%, but software and services, which is where the company's going, those went up 12% to $193 million in the fourth quarter. So BlackBerry said it received 3,500 enterprise customer orders in the quarter. Looking ahead to fiscal 2018, we expect to grow at or above the overall market in software business, BlackBerry Chief Executive John Chen said in a statement. So basically, and then they lost only $47 million in the quarter, which is actually a good thing for them because last year this quarter they lost like something like $290 million. So the turnaround is starting to happen with BlackBerry. The question is, can they turn it fully around and can they get it back to profitability? Can they get those revenues to go up and things like that? I mean, the revenues for BlackBerry, it's not so much about the revenues falling, which they did obviously. It's more about, can they get profitable again? Because it's better to be a company that has $100 million in revenue and make a $10 million profit than a company that has $500 million in revenue and loses $40 million. Like, at the end of the day, the bottom line is what matters in the end, guys. So maybe BlackBerry's a turnaround story. Let me know if you guys are invested in that one. I would love to hear your guys' bullish thesis on that. I know a few of you that watch this channel all the time are invested in that one. Love to hear from you guys. Lululemon, they also reported earnings, and their stock got absolutely destroyed. It was down something like 20% after they reported these earnings, which the earnings weren't horrible in my opinion, but we'll kind of get into them here. Lululemon's fiscal fourth quarter results were mixed in the eyes of most following the stock. Revenue was up 12%, so not bad. 789 million they did for the last quarter, which was slightly better than roughly 785 million, which is actually what the analysts were expecting. Net income climbed 16%, so net income actually rose faster than the revenue to $136 million. It was 99 cents per share they earned. Analysts were expecting about $1 to $1.01. So Lululemon, the problem with Lululemon and the reason the stock got killed is actually because of the guidance they provided. They provided guidance that they just kind of had a negative overall sentiment about how the quarter started for them and the lack of customers, things like that. But also they said for the first fiscal quarter, Lululemon expects revenues to be in the range of $510 million to $515 million. So basically, what that means is they're expecting only 2 to 3% revenue growth from what they did last year. The issue is Lululemon, before the stock dropped so much, it was a PE of 30. This was trading at a high valuation. It was trading at a growth company. It was trading at a stock that might have 10 to 20% type revenue net income growth. When you're trading at a 30 PE, that's what you're expected. And then when all of a sudden you go to a 2 to 3%, that's when your stock absolutely gets hammered and gets nailed. And that's the situation Lululemon's at. And Lululemon might be a company I might want to look into. I might have to do an in-depth review on this one because I looked and their forward PE is something like a 19 now. From what I saw, and I didn't get to look into details too much, but from what I saw, I think they have a phenomenal balance sheet. So this might be one of those stocks that I need to look into and see if I should actually be investing in it. So that was another one that caught my eye. And the last story that caught my eye this week actually was just released today, this information. And this affects me extremely positively as far as any of you guys that own casino stocks out there and anybody that's invested in China in general, it all affects you guys. Casino gross gaming revenue, GGR, in Macau rose 18% year on year in March. 18%. These numbers just came out. Analysts were expecting somewhere around a 12 to 16%, 12% on the low end, 16% on the high end. It easily beat even the highest expectations for numbers, guys. 18%. This is phenomenal news for me because of Wynn Resorts, right? My number 2 stock. So that stock should pop very nice on Monday. I'm expecting, I don't know, between a 3 and a 7% pop on Wynn Resorts. Any of you guys that own casino stocks that are related to Macau, you should benefit from this. And also, Macau numbers, I've studied Macau for a long time. Macau numbers and the Chinese economic numbers are very similar. When Macau is doing phenomenal, when Macau is doing great, the Chinese economy is on fire. It is just doing absolutely great. When Macau is struggling, that's when there's weakness in the Chinese economy. Those two go hand in hand. I don't know what it is about it. I see the numbers and they track. When Macau started to struggle in late 2014, and guess what happened? The Chinese economy also started to struggle, and then the next thing you know, on TV every day they were talking about Chinese economic numbers and how things were slowing greatly. A lot of negative sentiment about China. Now all of a sudden, the numbers are getting better as far as Macau goes, and I would expect in the overall economy in China, the numbers to get stronger, guys. These go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. The other one point I want to make about this is actually that the higher end is actually where a lot of the gains were at, which is actually the best for my investment. So it's like a double good thing because numbers are up 18%. And the higher end, the VIP, which are Wynn's main customers, right? Those were the ones that spent the most throughout the quarter. They're the ones that really pushed up those numbers, guys. So those are the stock market news stories that I was interested in this week that caught my attention. Now, what we have for next week is Walgreens is reporting numbers. We know I just talked about Walgreens as far as the Rite Aid transaction and whatnot, putting the pressure on the government to either give them a yes or no, very soon here. Walgreens reporting numbers, so we'll have to look at what Walgreens is doing. Walgreens is an interesting name just because we know the baby boomers are aging. We know the U.S. population. We have literally tens of millions of people going into retirement every year, right? And we know the older you get, the more likely you're going to have prescriptions and some of those kind of things, medications that are going to come from pharmacies. Walgreens is probably arguably the best play on that exact situation, guys. So we're going to be paying attention to those numbers. CarMax is coming out with numbers. And autos, there's also a lot of negativity about the automobile industry. You know how I feel. If you've followed me for a while, you know how I feel about the auto names and how I don't like them and those kinds of things. And I think we're in bubble territory on the auto loans and a lot of different things. So CarMax is coming out with numbers. It'll be very interesting to hear their commentary. Do they see some of these worries in the market? Do they see some of these pricing pressures and things like that? Pay attention to those numbers, and just because those auto sales numbers might start coming in a little weak, it does not mean that the economy is bad. I want to make sure you guys understand that. Just because those numbers might come in a little soft or whatnot, doesn't mean the economy as a whole is coming in soft. It just means that too many people have bought too many automobiles recently and those kinds of things, guys, and a lot of people have loans who shouldn't have them. And then the last thing I'm looking for this upcoming week is non-farm payrolls. Non-farm payrolls coming out. We'll see how basically the overall U.S. economy is doing as far as the job market, guys. So that covers everything. I hope you enjoyed this today. Hit that thumbs up button if you did. Let's see if we can get this video 200 likes. And if you just came across this video, you're not subscribed yet, you may want to. We talk personal finance on the channel. We talk entrepreneurship. I'm an actual business owner. I give away so many business tips. And we talk the stock market the most of everything, including this series every single week. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a great day.